Hello, hello YouTube, hello species value nature system. This is about for pamphleteer, for New York, for America, for all modern nations, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, with mean stacking, so it works. The counter that was not even fathomed to what is not even countered, because in other words, because everyone blames on other things other than themselves, where and how and why. The identity of the ground, stewards of each location cannot defend their fact treatment nature positions as trained to, and us at the same time from what exploits that. Everyone forced to rely upon database relationships since before computers, involved with the tactical criminal reengineering of this ancient republic and of its campuses, its concentrated campuses system, and of the value of that, the identity of that. Increasingly distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously present away from that. Where we have identity, we have the use of the words slash values like every word is, but like in environment. This is about the nature. This is about the identity of nature that is coming through what is both positive or negative to its own self-perfection, perfect. One identity of volume. All other identities of volume are a demonstration of this. Now, so if we have unity as even if it's peaceful in relationship to contrast, it is not peaceful in relationship to correlation nature. There is each identity of the ground's relationship to our quality of fact treatment nature, which is native pure one with no criminal foreign influences. Note that were the phenomenon of having been criminally legalized because everyone was victims to it. And no one had free speech. And everyone had speech forced for not just for so long. Their defenses of that, their uses of that, simultaneously were causing them to blame other things other than themselves as victims, forced to entertain what you can't entertain without doing that. And then defenses of that, which were engineered roles with premises treatments, with identity treatments, identities of jobs, too, identities of industries, identities of logic, identities of sense and of sensibility, to use Jane Austen's phrase, which is also evidence, for example, one evidence that in how such was involved as evidence of the recorded modern nation's victims, but victim predator interbranch identities of law at the time. We'll examine it. In other words, this is what the pamphleteer game is about. So, and we'll fight. We'll make a negotiation. In other words, we'll make a business, and we're gonna, instead of just blaming on other things, others themselves, what is forsaken. So you have to admit that, and to be science, you have to be able to admit the forsaken and the forsaken. But the reason they didn't do it is because constantly they engineered each identity of the ground location, not just trained to pretend integrity, even though they don't have it, even though it was not their fault. Defenses of that self-value are identities that are used remotely as an identity of volume, as criminal insidiousness nature, in relationship to this one identity of volume that is the scientific value, and how it is the scientific value, and of each identity of value progression individually grouped and together. So the sciences share an identity. So, for example, even with music, before music theory as one identity of sequence nature, it is as an identity of volume, as we'll examine, as value. as nature is value, value is nature, which is invisible but still discernible. And again, because of how it is distinctly, non-distinctly, and is simultaneously, its identity of relationship to itself, that is the phenomenon of why and of how we have this Trinity manifest, even with and as our own species identity of volume. That's why I refer to the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel and people outside of YouTube platform, which everyone should have a YouTube channel. You never know when it only takes a second. You never know when you need to put a video up. And we need more means, like for Sandy Hook. People are pretending things are insensitive and stuff like that because we have courts that were involved with that through other natures of organized crime. We have police forms that were involved with that through other natures of organized crime. We have fire departments that were involved with that through other natures of organized crime. Recorded. This is not theory. They also now how what are they going to do? They're going to say they're always making a theory, while they are offensively simultaneously preventing mandated law. That's evidence. Now there are evidences they don't like individually grouped and together. Each branch of government distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, not by accident. Every modern nation is the same thing. So they fight and have to pretend their integrity. Where we have fact treatment nature, the only counters to overtly sick things like wars, what leads up to it, escalate, for what they're solving, from attacking denatured basins before cars, involved with the fact treatment nature, torture of and slavery of our founding parents, since before their births, this pathology of homes, since before cars. The same one manifests in Russia. The means to it all rolls with it. Self-value as victims, but as victim predators, defenses of it, where it counts in relationship to mandated law. And people say it's about, oh, that's politics. Those are fake sides of correlation nature. This is where this is how this is per a method to criminal foreign influence of all locations, areas, and states, leveraged against everyone. The same thing that does that is self-valued roles hiding it per needs to and stuff ulterior from its own, but bonded and controlled by it. See, Native Americans missed this too. They were the last ones to fall from it, and but they stayed. So they didn't fall, but we're still falling. The entire species is in an identity of negative value nature progression, and there are more and more natures of predicate acts, natures of the organized crime associated with it. The same natures of organized crime, acts and methods, but other predicate acts delivery system methods, other predicate acts delivery cover-up methods. And see, now this is again facilitated for them to hide it, individually grouped it together, because each branch of government, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, each individual difference of each person, individually grouped it together of each branch of government, every modern nation. This is also each identity of the ground location. Now, see, in relationship to this is like correlation. We're correlation. We have forsaken areas, most forsaken, where it is most negative, bad. It shouldn't be. That is positive to correlation to know that, to be able to agree to that, to be able to use what disagrees with that is recorded reliant upon criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, reliant upon systems and methods of preventing free speech and interbranch roles with other nations, used as an identity ground, as this identity of volume, as these identities of contrast to other nations, that has them simultaneously further and further in collusion. What is fluent here and there through them, as their contained sophistication. Going to Mars is not sophistication. It is not war. It is the value of war, which is increasing, which is value relationship as temporary positive to the phenomenon of how being positive or negative in relationship to its system, relationship to its idea, which are bonded identities of sequence nature. This is manifest even in the sciences share. It's manifest with everything, as everything. Even if you make something up, this is about the identity that inventions work or not in relationship to, and they are further positive or not in relationship to its bonded identities of sequence nature as identities of volume. This is per science discernibly how it is self-generating an identity of volume, just as oxygen is an identity of volume, distinct from carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is distinct from carbon dioxide. Now, see, I'm not, just know basic things like that. I'm not a scientist. I'm a master on the nature of English grammar. What's that mean? That means I'm a master on the identity, which you all will be. The identity that all parts of English grammar, all parts of English, all subparts of English were revealed as other ancient languages were, as identities of sounds that have a better than living identity of relationship to themselves, in relationship to this one identity of forever nature that is making more of itself by making more and more temporary slash lasting its identity of volume as forever nature. So when I refer to a forever nature, I'm referring to an identity of volume per science, the one that is the scientific value of each identity of value progression individually grouped and together. We don't have to agree about the name. And simultaneously, it is true that we simultaneously need to. And simultaneously, how this is true is like everything again in relationship to this identity. It's Trinity, which is not just its bonded, inherent, active, and progressive identities of volume as value as nature, and nature as value simultaneously. But that is too the fact treatment nature discernment that we are value to and as, while we are to and as its complete possession, that which has us longing clean water, longing to get mad at its loss. Now, see, but its overt losses were juxtaposed all victims in this again, where everyone was engineered not just blaming other things, others, and selves for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidious natures, wrongdoers. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, I'm not a criminal. Again, this is about the identity the science is shared. It is evidence that and how there is worse than criminal incompetence because of that and how effectively each modern nation's identities of the law, each identity of the ground location, every people A through Z, modern nations A through Z, colonists A through Z. They already were blaming others. They were already used remotely. They're already in a semi-ancient trap that came since before modern religion's messengers. Thank God for them for damage control, because English has not been restored to its proper fact treatment nature preservation. Arabic has not been preserved to its proper fact treatment nature presentation. The sciences have an identity of value as individual grouped and together, as sounds with an identity of relationship to themselves, in demonstration manifest the same way our species is manifest, individual grouped and together, in no age, in no correlation nature, is with distinctions in fact, treatment nature obligations logistically forced that are outside of. So we'll examine what is force, also temporary / lasting, only temporary positive. But this is also the criminal and seditious natures. People could have there's such a thing as positive that is not really positive, and there is such a thing as a nature of corruption, where they have the identity of the ground in relationship to it again, where everyone missed this, and then tribes A through Z. Everyone was separated from what the ancients revealed before the sciences became criminally foreign influence, tactically criminally foreign influence, effectively undiscerned. How and why, what really caused it, even when correctly, people speaking about that correctly. In other words, other motivations, natures, needs, and interests were juxtaposed with its own, which no one's unrealized, which is tied to from off the ground of education, value as nature's value simultaneously. Also says this identity of volume attached distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously to the order of sequence true before the order of the finite, while being distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the value of the order of the finite. And those two orders of value as two identities of sequence nature simultaneously. And then two, while simultaneously with the distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously relevant active quality of fact, treatment nature we are as this identity of volumes science, and in relationship to its perfection, having been in ancient times, that semi-ancient times were sown to real hurt, to real enemies, just like the Native Americans. It is right. It is technically right. It's a truth attached to lies. For example, when they say Native Americans, they were attacked by white people. That's true. But those white people were attacked by what they didn't see coming from some ancient times either. These are each in slavery. We have intercultural, including black representatives from black nations. Every modern nation was taken to where and how the sciences are how nations before criminal foreign influence sciences, therefore criminal foreign influenced human relations, therefore lie progressions further and further from that with formal database relationships. What revealed this republic? What revealed languages? That database is oriented. So when I say they built since before electronic definitions of it, they built and know how. Our founders weren't even freed yet. The American Revolution didn't free us. That just made us be one of the same hostage nations. Nations were coming out of it, but they were staying in it at the same time, blaming other things, others themselves, defending that as victim needs to, only capable of it. Worse, they're just stealing people into fake words into databases. What do you think they were doing when they had to react as victim roles, as fact-keeping nature slaves? the courts of Connecticut. Well, they still had after the American Revolutionary War was already won. George Washington was extorted. He could only semi-counter extort that was left with slavery in the North and the South, tactically, sickly, distinctly, effectively, again, to keep everyone blaming other things other than themselves, and to use it. But how to use it, how it was using it, everyone missed. How it is using it, everyone missed. So we have the proper treatments with all the things you hear in the Congress with the impeachment things. They're hiding their roles with this. Correlation nature has means to show instant how to make instant. But this is not what the statistics say. What are your evidences? They're not following mandated law. They can't handle correlation nature's finite, active, and progressive means it would seek one's truth. And with identities, actual complete means that way. In relationship to this greater than. This generated everything. This that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts and means. One way redeems. Only the extent of this is debatable, not by accident, scientific consensus, and scientific processes criminally foreign influenced, even overtly altogether like that in all parts of it, individually, all originally, still. The perfect world is forsaken because each position, all that is to this unchallenged. So we have this, for example, in relationship to our zoning laws. Fake care, torture, and worse than just hurt against everyone. Since before cars, this pathology means to it. All forced to be roles. All forced to either long this through this system, still captive, or you're not going to have, worse than not have free speech with per use of a integrity of logic, capable of even telling American history, for example, of even answering the questions properly. There are reasons increasingly of value why and how the predicate act of the law and the predicate of English grammar are in demonstration of this identity the sciences share. Again, that inventions work or not in relationship to, and that are further positive or not in relationship to. So this is relevant because each modern nation's identity, the ground locations, each individual of them, each group difference, male, female. There are roles with uses of those difference, where and how human relations, where in a contained captive entity. So it is these things that are most overtly sick. This breaching method needed then to perpetually keep passions and emotions, everyone fake, as the standing criminalization nature, rather than using the soul agreed, species nature, every single person agrees. You know, who pretends the other. In other words, that we're in a captive. We can't afford to fix nature unless we do it outside of this system. We do it like religiously. You know, in the holidays, the ancients knew, individually grouped and together. They're about that identity. That is the fifth season. That is the value that these seasons share. Is where and how they are working together, and we didn't engineer that. Trying to change that, all it does is take our value and the Earth's value away. Leaf of Hades, through this little species too long. Boxing is strong, but give it rest. The earthy rounds. I'll gather around, which native pure, will send them gifts. So this is what also. So I want to make this like a gaming system. Any gaming system, and I want to make that like a virtual. This is also see the pamphleteers. You guys are going to explain this. If you're, especially if you're in like the most overtly sick, overtly forsaken. When I say sick, I'm going to show you where and how passions and emotions are faked by everyone, and so people won't allow demonstration of their ties to this identity of simultaneous relationship, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, to these five identities of sequence nature. One identity is coming to, from, as, with, and for itself. Where and how the science of evolution demonstrates this, which uses this identity of value progression. Again, not just that the science is shared, not just that that inventions work or not in relationship to. So I don't know how this is a long video. So the important thing is, who wants to be a pamphleteer? All you have to say is, you can do it verbally too. You could say some guy on YouTube, Anthony Wall. He uses the name on YouTube, Romulus Wall, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. He said, if we don't have computers or anything, we don't need it. As long as we can get someone who has a computer who will represent us. Says, and then we're gonna stack not just means for that spot and that person, but we're gonna make everyone want them to be successful. Because we're gonna make this like a gaming. It only feels like game evolution's science. This is no game. This is using as evidence where and how people interbranch prevent mandated law, where and how they'll steal your identity, and they did, in our roles with it, pretending other dishonestly. So what is evidence of how they prevent mandated law? Now, how they put fake transcripts into databases. How, if that gets admitted, we get punished at trade center agreement, only counters to things like war, not by accident. Other nations doing that and having kept that, but not per themselves, right? Which the same thing's going on there. They have each identity of the ground. Okay, this was sophistication before, here and there. We're in a semi-ancient trap. Here each must rap. Nations A1 through Z, however many nations of Z there are. This guy's a star. Yeah, midnight's black as one. Black people's peer. As each. Let just one teach. Free speech. See, media, they attach me to fake yelling. I knew you couldn't record the police. So I had to force people verbally. I had to force people verbally to, not one person, that I know, verbally to call the police without telling them why. And they wouldn't do it. So I had to say, this is right in the context of my father's death. But simultaneously, people that were involved with predicate acts, not just against him, but against me and against other people intercity, intercampuses also through time, with connections. Now, these are also people, dozens of people within the Britain Superior Court, various overt criminal enterprises, per their takes on what bonds on what their group so they have to charge to make a predicate act. I'm not to charge a predicate act again with the identity. They have to make a group, like a charge an identity or criminal enterprise. Now, even when they had writ trials, this ancient republic was already here before our founders were even born. The phenomenon of the revelations, the series of connected revelations, that the phenomenon of humanity's original internations relations affected and was value as per interlocations, areas and states relations with ourselves. It was evolution's fruits and gifts. It was knowledge revealed how to reveal evolution's fruits and gifts. This works with ground that's needed pure. So you know how many? So just we put the just to organize these identities, claim that, and to just separating everyone from blaming other things, others, themselves for it. Simultaneously, we're going to claim what is true. Every location of the modern nations, let alone the most forsaken, tactically, criminally denatured, let alone that most overtly, everything's landscape theater. These natures of soil and that unfolding as these natures of soil, all waters were put underground. Everything was engineered for this pathology of homes of you know the business, everything measured into shape. Everyone said, well, this is how it's equal, because this is as identity ground relationship to as a value progression system, grouped, individually grouped it together as an identity of negative value nature progression. Forgiveness is critical in relationship to the where and how. The identity ground locations of all natures of religious locations are involved with this also as victims, not realizing how and why they can't follow mandated law. Therefore, self-value, blame the other things, others themselves. Original why simple things. How have the simple free speech has been how it has been not just how it has been prohibited free speech, how that was exploited. Because this is where and how the criminal foreign influences come in. But all the standing identity, even though overt criminal enterprises, even if they're real in relationship to drugs, organization, and trafficking together, for example, or human trafficking, they're still what really furthers them down to they're kept needing with the suits and ties to hide the same, not just the undercover which they demonstrated, and you know it was recorded, known. They have even if police are off duty in regular clothes. So we have identities of the law that are not the law, but they defend their individual identities against strangers. And especially against anyone who's going to try to use correlation nature with actual integrity and honesty. Prayer is also demonstrably was used by a science, tactically ulterior from what they call prayer, which they've obfuscated. Exceptions in exception nature deals with how modern religions are trying to show about that, teach about that. But the first part of the Quran, for example, the first part of the Old Testament, here and there, no one will allow. the free speech of anyone with all the revelations right there. First part of the Old Testament. Oh, this Old Testament, how can it be about anything? No. It says all you have to know is up to right here, where about the sciences sharing identity. The rest of it says this, all you have to know is up to understand to up to right here. Everyone will come together. Not as unity, negative value, nature, progression. That's what was left, only capable of being. What is evidence is what denies this, and how it defends itself as fact-keeping nature. Relying also on databases, unrealized and realized, but even when realized, it's only through their own collusion needing it, valuing it always having been that way. And many pray. It is worse than criminal incompetence to bring up witch trials and to separate that from put black and white with the laws, and to separate that from what is actually recorded. Black and white leaderships in collusion with each other, with the overt criminal enterprises, with the hate groups, through other natures of bonded, through as natures of bonded, other interests to lie, but used by one they're bonding it. So everyone can't just like, oh, I could just get away with this here, no, but I'll be good here. The rest, this is every day. Amen. Pray. There's and they are recorded also. For example, the prisons tied to courts. Alternatives to that. And now they also have media recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that they involved with evidences, crimes outside on off interbranch locations with courts. Now, see, if they try to deny this on paper, that's why they'll steal your identity. This is how the identity, the ground locations are used, and these are how that is also with the overt criminal enterprises kept needing to hide the same finite sequence shifts, finite lies, active lies, progressive lies, and identity lies with them is also recorded. That's why it's their motivations to hide from presidents, what's actually recorded on Facebook, as the FBI have to pretend to be other. That's why Mueller and Comey there's a guy named Robert Mueller and a guy named James Comey. Real or made up FBI directors. They are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with federal criminal code defendants of his. Intercities involved with predicate acts and on off campuses with a house on my street. Also with extended family members further involved with forensics locations with them through time criminally, and with the transition from Alca to Rico. Mid-70s and before that. Today they have job sites with a whole bunch of nation shared policing. They have the identities of industries, like with slavery. That was a breaching employed industry. Effectively then and now and still now. Victim predators consciously and unconsciously pretending that our founders entrenched that. Leaving out how close that was. 1865 is what they call the end of the Civil War. They still had all natures of slavery still entrenched in the North and the South. Just, this is all fact-keeping nature. Worse than racketeering, worse than war crimes. Simultaneously overt and subtle at the same time because of all the misprisoned identities in the individual life progressions, in the group life progressions, in the overall identity of negative value nature progression that everyone pretended was positive through anything that was positive. used for that. Now, this is where where we are a fact human nature, where it is, we're speaking about the invisible but still discernible. Okay, thank you for coming out this evening. Doc Sings. YouTube.com/user/rhymeless. I forgot the point was about the. So again, I mean, I didn't forget the point. This is the point. The pamphleteers. We're gonna make a school. The ancient game system. I'm doing this anyway. But I mean, I want to make a virtual person to partner with in another version of it. And in other words, but this is like a game /s/gaming system where we're claiming every location of America for worse than forsaken. Somebody, if they want to deny it. See, we're not going to use contrast. We're going to use correlation. We're going to use an identity of logic that is recorded, prevented free speech. And how? They'll steal your identity. They have been stealing your identities. They've been lying to the same parents and families that they're involved with abuses of the kids. Now we have to counter how the woman rolls with this interbranch, right through administrations, with the child offenders. Many how you hear these things on off church locations, on off schools. Their motivations were not all sexual. Even if they were recorded involved with other natures of organized crime with the kids. And then they're recorded with the crime methods of pretending it's legitimate right to lie. Each branch of government individually grouped it together. And they hide that too by using crime methods of forging names and of switching names. States attorneys, switching names. Roles with this tied to the Ukrainian treatments, to the Russian treatments. People involved with Hartford Hospital, Intercities hospitals, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, all with the same house. Involved with them with on off campuses, untimely deaths connected, time wise, other ways to their bonded, actually recorded. Roles with organized crime. These are people that pretended conversations with me and others since we're in sustained ways, intercities. They attach that to everything that's true. And they already made up too much to deal with any of it, because everything they did, that's, in other words, they can't tell the truth, even when they're using the truth. They have to pretend other. They have to sequence shift inside and outside of courts, online, tied to their recorded falsified transcripts. They're trying to impeach the president because of this method, fake sides uses of each branch of government individually grouped together. And fake their crime methods are against correlation nature, where they put fake sides of sequence nature, identity ground treatments when they make investigations, when they make complaints, have complaints made, influenced made, because their method of identity thefts, frauds, sequence shifts, their illusions used by an as this breaching method, worse than war crimes. It's only simple. This is why, like, people go, this is why. This is, every modern nation is a victim of it, sickly, distinctly. And no one could deal with that because no one could discern how sickly, non-distinctly. No one could afford to, because they already used their identities fake. Germany, America, Jewish, those are all identity grounds measured out, sickly, distinctly. All the people hurt by this stuff in relationship to what they needed then and now to stay. Premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive. That's why they had Joseph Mengele left out. If they want to hate someone, don't hate Hitler. I mean, hate Joseph Mengele. Otherwise, you keep the leaders in collusion with insidious fake care and insidious fake righteous justice and insidious roles with them are simultaneously overt. That values further and further each identity ground. Worse than war crimes, collusion with worse than just overt criminal enterprises. Recorded most victim predator, most furthered, not just by the breaching method, but by the breaching method effectively maintaining the branches of government using their bodies. Kept needing to hide the same on illusions with them, tied to their on off their locations, tied to their falsified transcripts, tied to their sequence shifts, tied to the uses of the identities of agencies that have all bunch of people, like FBI. So they're just going to defend an identity blindly. The FBI is recorded criminally incompetent. You can discern it through their roles with what people say and what people write as American history. You don't try to tell and speak for James Madison without understanding the fact cheap nature slavery of everyone, entrenched and how it was entrenched, understanding those database relationships, understanding the lie progressions from them in relationship to correlation nature and sequence treatments, sequence true the value of that. This is in the value of evolution science, nowhere near allowed free speech of equality because they have all truths used for lies. They have the crime method here and there manifest where they want to get in, they want our nation to be punished sanction wise, crippled sanction wise, crippled being able to use any kind of means to reliefs or to counters other than physical worse war things, stuff like that. So we have the identity of the ground distinctions on off water locations. A whole bunch of people with Middletown and a Phil Color further involved, intercities and interbranch with my town, on and off the Britain Superior Court, on and off Weathersfield Police Department, fake conversations with me and with themselves. They never were at all. Falsified, fake recorded things by police. And now I need to report this. They're forging names, switching names. They haven't been doing this. They're pretending they don't realize. Now they sustain this too because of how this is intercampuses of each age and nature tied, and always has been. And that has been self-valued, but everyone missed it. Missed why? That's where it stays relevant, where and how they are actually recorded with the overt criminal enterprises, like Los Solitos, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with how the judges, how the prosecutors, they don't legitimately influence people to approach others and to make confessions to others. And this is intermilitary too. Delusions rot with psychology. You're out of your minds. Forging names, switching names, faking conversations. They have now these are various natures of courts involved with them at the same time. Same ones all tied to the same house with the extended family members. I caught them even with child offenders, even sexual. And the New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page and the school's Facebook pages. Now, these are also people with other courts, like Hartford courts, leading up to the Trade Center with New Britain Superior Court involved with them, with predicate acts on off their location, on off campuses. Same way they shouldn't, they're worse than criminally incompetent when in relationship to all the questions your souls need to ask America and modern nations. Now we have to see. We also as evidence how they need people to blame other things themselves for this, even themselves. They need to get caught even just to keep going, just to keep entertaining postures, impressions of, integrity, that that are breaching screens, breaching tools. That's what Marbury versus Madison wanted us to understand. That that's what my lawyer. They are the bar itself is delusions raw originally and still. That's recorded too many ways. The correlation. That's self-valid in many ways. The correlation. Everyone has the perfect world. Something similar in their narratives about their excuses and their defenses of that. Rely again upon recording delusions, raw, criminally foreign influence, premises treatments, sequence treatments, value treatments. It's not just because they're Native American, it's because they're native. It's because of what is native pure as our species identity of volume is that which reveals evolution's fruits or gifts or forces them to leave to vadis, or its value goes. And that's self-value per the phenomenon of the method, maintaining it self-cultivated. That's how it maintains us and maintained. So the means to it are already manifest. No, so through everything, so sense and sensibilities. Yeah, of course, I'll drop the force, fake sides. So they also have passions and emotions. Dishonestly with people, oh, the blind sacrifice. That's blind fast sacrifice, which is real, in which you have to appreciate. And they know presidents have to appreciate it. Service people of all kinds. Now, but there, where and how there were our distinctions originally and still, that's evidence. There were witch trials, not just witch trials. Forget everything that was made up. There were Jim Crow laws. They were let alone. No, this is North and South. They left out the roles with the North with slavery. How it is sickly distinctly then, effectively then and now to keep undiscerned how sickly non-distinctly. And the way it unfolds, everyone's self-values that breaching that hid for other reasons. Everyone can't afford correlation nature's free speech. So Connecticut media, WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, WTNH, they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they're involved with organized crime next to religious spots. They did this by attaching me to fake conversations, no. Fake words, fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake sequences with judges and prosecutors. So that on and off their locations and with the media. These are wire crimes. These are falsified police reports rolls, human trafficking rolls, even with the principal child offenders campus. Wire crimes also with the ones involved. They involved where you have dozens of people from one court alone, and then dozens of people from one police department alone. Then they have their family members. You quickly have hundreds of people. Now these are fact cheap in nature, identity of the ground, database relationships that are being exploited originally and still, but they're preventing free speech. Even that's why they're still not allowing things to be recorded in courtrooms, and all exceptions are them pretending things that are recorded out of sequence and fake things. Now, two Mendes police are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with federal crimes, pretending things are recorded on and off New Britain Superior Court and Weathersfield Police Department, and with their police chief, his daughter, her daughter's extended family members, and a whole bunch of people tied to them, and into the bakeries on Franklin Avenue that are involved further with everyone speaking through others and their roles with child offenders. Same ones involved with elderly offenders, same ones roles with my new and past neighbors, nothing personal. With a Dylan, with the police families involved, with their falsified police reports, forging names and switching names, each branch of government distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. That's evidence. Their identity, ground locations. They say, "Oh, we don't see that. We are doing our job. We go like this." They've been making up evidence for a long time, hiding that. They have needs to hide how they've been using every identity, the ground location, let alone those most forsaken. Again, I'll lead you true. Vaccine comes through. Vaccine. We'll even make, we're going to be, the whole thing is communications. We're going to be like a magazine, but we just do as cheap as we can, whatever we can get. We'll get people to help us. People will help us. If you live in a forsaken area where we all know we want to counter those things, people from all over America will help you. We just have to be introduced to your animate character. We'll make cartoon characters, and we'll be able to talk about our progress stacking means, artistic release, and organizing ourselves with the branches of government, with ourselves, and with other nations at the same time with the science that admits everyone was a victim predator and is a victim. I mean, is a victim and is a victim. Every single person, every position of the human, fact, human nature, even kings, even especially queens. I mean, distinctly and non-distinctly, differentially too, because it's the negative value. It's the identity of negative value nature progression that is getting over on everyone, sickly distinctly. But it's getting, and it's so sickly non-distinct. Everyone's missing how sickly distinctly, so it can use our premises treatments. So it can use the identity of value treatments, pretend to mean what it doesn't. Same people pretend to be against allegations. The media is recorded, confess, demonstrate all the time. That's why they affect multiple faked arrests, real arrests, but they falsify police reports using such to stack databases with fake things because they need to hide their roles with the extortion of each identity, the ground location. And worse than that, but we'll keep it simple because again, we're coming into the identity of value/value progression. Where they have people stacking, where they have and had self-value. All that is caused by that and fake caring for the results of it in collusion, recorded actual collusion. All victims recorded simultaneously blaming other things to get themselves and that having been and being used, and that together, all that is where they're predators. Opinions fail. Campus Marcius calls you home. All hail to the ancient campus. We must make it stand. That's our age gaming system.com, which is have to generate one. People, YouTube has good things. The best is to learn from schools or straight from the right book. I have to go on. I spend a lot of time making videos because I just need a response. See, but no one follows mandated law and how they don't follow it and how they hide that and then hid that is a problem. That's why they and tied to why and how they're forging and switching names. They're forging and switching sequences, interbranch, individually grouped and together distinctly. They are manifest crime methods. They are manifest crime natures. Each age and nature of campus. They are victims from off them, influenced by this, but that and this and everything, every other location, every industry. This is from off that. Further and further on off it. Everyone through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, juxtaposed, only allowed, and or allowed, and or forcing everyone to blame all the causes and is on other things other than themselves, not by accident. Way worse. Only bad. These are really positive things when we're on the same page because we all agree about this stuff. We all agree. All of a sudden, we all see and know how many people we have in this part of the trap. How many people in this part of the trap? We're going to do another or nature of organization. Fake, fake identity, ground locations, pretending not to realize exploitations of that. Exploitations of value nature systems ulterior from this one. They can't afford the logic of, even though it's fluent. Theirs is inseparable from this. This is why we're in an identity of negative value nature progression, where the Native American landscape and Native Earth's original things are going away and went away. Vaccine. Return its thing. Return its means. One way redeems its native pure. So of this be sure. So Anthony Wall, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall, ROMULUS, WALL. Long way home, highway song. Long way home again, highway song began. I have to remember it, otherwise you can't sing it with the right key. Me, do, re, mi, fa, so. So long, so long, so long, tears. The turning years. So long, goodbye, my lullaby. Yeah. So we'll train. This is also, I have, in other words, Pamphleteer, what is it going to be about, Pamphleteer? A company that everyone's going to, it's the gaming system. But you guys have to be the player that we're going to play. And your dreams are where we want to win. Boxings begin. Who disbelieves? You could just make a piece of notebook paper and say, this is the Pamphleteer game. Anyone under 18, you have to just get your parent to play. I mean, to represent you. And you could be a hyper player. We have advantages for each age. Because each age of fact treatment nature was sickly hurt. Effectively to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Effectively to keep rolls with its obfuscation self-value as victims only needed to do damage control from and as all this will allow to be. Each identity of this is what each identity of industry is only allowed to be abridged. Quality of fact treatment nature, but they want to speak anyway for money, for market systems, for logic, for mental health. We have sickly, mentally ill people, formally, that are experts on it, Now they've been getting away with it because of the nature of natures, the many because of how the other branches of government are involved with it, with other natures of organized crime with them and with lie progressions. So while they're investigating things, they're needing to hide things, and their roles were really went down. And if people say that, they need to pretend we're just talking about them trying to act like they're undercover or whatever. They also need to pretend we have conspiracy theories. They can't debunk this. They try to put it on papers. They're forging names, switching names, putting fake transcripts, sequence shifting. These are people with on from Connecticut, interbranch, intercities, intercampuses, connected, actually recorded serious crimes against each age of fact sheet nature with databases involved, uses of it on off campuses and online. Note that that Stanford is also recorded one of the only contexts I know Joe Aiello in really brief moments. I remember him from when I was a kid. He attached himself to fake locations, switching names, forging names with others. Roles. And it rolls with courts doing that, with police doing that. But he's one of the people that say things onto Facebook because of how they're recorded using Facebook and their roles with databases crimes through administrations. They've been putting fake transcripts. So, so in other words, he's involved with sequence crimes too. They want to go to the courts to have settled issues where they were involved with the people with the crimes. They were involved with the area's uses. They're involved with everyone from using correlation and logic proper. They're involved with forcing people to entertain mentally ill logic. That is also criminally ill logic. That is also delusions wrought, the identities of experts of psychology. Dr. Phil, for example, I don't even know him. He's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the networks effectively having been used remotely, and their roles with Congress effectively used remotely. They criminally prevented mandated law. They have a pattern of organized crime, acts, and wrongdoing, and sequence shifts on off interstates courts, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack, many ways recorded. Further sequence shifts right on and off, and other pattern of evil things further recorded with the people on off the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack. Presented allusions to the judges, had their standing sensibilities lied to per their roles with database crimes. These are people with intercampuses, Central Connecticut State University, and with a Scalora family involved with them, intercities, non-off campuses, pretending that identity thefts with people reportedly related to them on my street. Also, there Phil Claw reportedly related to them. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated others tied to them with forensics locations, with identities of leaderships of intermilitary, Coast Guard. So you have people with Joshua Julian. Further with the Facebook crimes, on off the campuses with child offenders. Now, how the resource officers are involved is also connected to how they used and use locations, foreign and domestic, that has nothing to do with it because they're juxtaposed. Uses of on and off shared policing, like of stores, like on and off Town Line Drive, involved with the Central Connecticut State University, with the ones that attach middle school kids and high school kids and little kids in grammar school to fake locations and fake conversations with strangers to other students in a method that is exploiting that criminally with other nations in overt criminal enterprises and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other agencies in collusion with worse than criminal incompetence. They're going to speak for what made slavery? Not in minds. We're going to speak for it. We're going to counter this breaching method that wanted and needs us to blame other things, others themselves, for what that caused and what it keeps increasingly. Negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, like predicate acts, like wrongdoers, like wrongdoing. We got tailbacks. Y'all step backs. St. Quarterback. Okay, so we're going to learn to rap. We have the phenomenon of the sciences caught. Each one of them individually grouped and together, criminally foreign influenced and delusions raw. I am not a doctor. I'm going to delineate their delusions for their criminally foreign influenced souls for you here now. Who's gonna be the representative? Until we get closest to the most forsaken area. We don't even have to have. You could be from any area, and you can disagree with it, but just represent because you want to represent the overtly for a second. Who's going to deny when they have those big contacts where you see in the movies with the big buildings, or if you drive by New York, you see it. That was built to keep our fact sheet nature shock and awe, and rolls with it. Never fathoming to all spots. One thing, boxing. Okay, thank you for coming out this evening. YouTube.com/user/Romulus Twill hear you all. Species coach. Little Rap Guy and friends are great educational tools. They are anti-archetypal criminal enterprise involved with the counter extortion of Hartford, Connecticut, and of New York City, and of the neighboring suburbs and nations. To maintain the entire species, to counter extort the already extorted entire cartoon species identity of volume. Now, this will teach you about the identity of volume you are and how you are a species. This worse than obfuscated by the sciences, engineered, abridged, so they could stay self-valued, abridged, quality of fact, cheap in nature to our as an identity of volume, as value, as nature, nature as value simultaneously, with and as value further than that, inseparable from it, positive or negative too. This course comes through boxings, your genesis. Here's the science of it. See, we have everyone wanting to speak, defend positions on faith, positions on positive and negative, positions on other people. They can't do that and afford to follow mandated law. See, that's how they are trapped and framed, even where and how they're sickly wrong too. Actually, rightfully, the people that hurt those kids with the church, as reported and as actually recorded. There were in collusion with the interbranch, individually grouped together, kept needing to hide live progressions, kept needing to hide roles with fake positive, with H low identity, the ground location, area, state, age and nature of campus, further intersciences. Again, for this method consciously, effectively, even homeschool kids and their family members involved with this database organized crime. All difference consumed. Vaccines. Your fate has loomed, yet wrong. Boxing is strong. Reliefs, not rest. I tell best boxings. This gains us things. So, someone help out so they could understand what's coming to help, because we're gonna use what is actually recorded to correlation. We're gonna use logic, how it should actually be used. We're gonna use the identity that ratiocination and that pseudo ratiocination share to demonstrate what's even greater still. Let's all prepare. Boxing. tells all things. Don't disbelieve. See how we could have had a whole book here. That's what, like a school. We're gonna be like a gaming school. We're gonna organize. We're gonna be able to. You know how valuable you guys are gonna be to New York, big companies, things like that. All I have to do is believe. One person. Hey man, some guy on YouTube says all we have to do is write on paper a pamphlet and tell everyone if they want to play. We're going to be a gaming investment that an income means system. We're going to stay mean stack. And we're going to do this artistically because the laws, the way and equality and stuff like that. In relationship to that, what's standing as is standing, accept as it is accepted. See, that's inclusion, though, as victims, leaving out their roles with the life progressions to those spots. So this is where the all private, overt criminal enterprises, all hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, whatever, and overt criminal enterprises and military, all the natures of difference in collusion with the difference used to keep correlation nature from proper sequence treatments, to keep everyone fake sides of truths they're using to lie and have been using to lie. And that's standard with everything as everything is manifest. I tell it best, boxings. So music, this is not music theory, this is music science. Then theory comes off of it. And this is discernible. We'll examine how English was revealed to teach this. So, for example, the letters of the English language are individually grouped. They have a grouped identity. They have bonded identity. /s. They're grouped various ways, not just alphabet, not just vowels and consonants, not just the letters after W, and right to left. We'll examine this. I have to finish my book. Tell people, look. Okay, thank you. Boxings. This is about whatever I'm into. This is what the identity that is that there's an identity of bond that is that they are inseparable from an inherent subnatural volume, an active subnatural volume, and a progressive subnatural volume. Just like how the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall are three subnatures of one identity as a cell, as an identity of volume, which is positive or negative to itself, has a quality of diffusion too, in relationship to itself. The identity, again, of value, as of scientific value, as the scientific value that each identity of value progression is individually grouped together. The name of God is only relevant where you have to agree, where you're talking with people. And God is used as an algebraic variable. This is where you can discern if we're right or wrong about God in relationship to evolution science, going by the identity that inventions work or not in relationship to. They are further positive or not in relationship to it. And they are further cause to and as what reveals means from out of nowhere, as evolution's fruits and gifts, or as cause to and as its relationship to itself as would forces, negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures, like criminal insidiousness natures, could never have the right to legalize criminal insidiousness nature, as our zoning laws are, as our pathology of infrastructure is, as means to it is, as that and how people on mass scales are on tactically, overtly, tactically denatured identity of the ground relationships where no one could grow food. All exceptions in collusion with needs to be stay fake, keep fake care, fake justice, and worse bonded. And that blame the other things ourselves. So just like how they use pamphlets in Boston with the phenomenon, with the narratives regarding the phenomenon of how they think, which is recorded demonstrably, semi-wrong, that how they think America unfolded. You can't understand how America unfolded if you don't understand how James Madison, it was his plan. You can't understand America if you can't understand how they're hiding his plan because they took over. We lost on all the significant fronts because we lost science is a bridge, self-valued that way. That couldn't help but be used remotely. Pretend to be America's founding after a war instead of finishing to win that identity of relationship to itself that our nature had, that was native pure, and that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts to Santa Claus. Will too. You will add the E before, after Santa's name, right to left, come through. You'll see. This makes more sense than what you've heard in schools, intercampuses, delusions raw, criminally foreign influence. The policing of them is inclusion with the drug markets, not legitimately, not just the way that they have on papers they say pretend to know. These are literally identity thefts, frauds, and worse than war crimes. Uses of identity roles, uses of themselves, uses of police equipment, uses of the people that work for the wire crime companies, all of them. Then the uses of conspiracy theories. The evidence is that how they preventing mandated law. I asked you for a response for the interbranch forging, switching names, and confessions regarding this, and their roles further with the Joshua Julian, with forensics locations, with the house on my street /S, involved further with their extended family members, with the principal child defenders campus, and with the drug crimes, untimely deaths brought such up to me, as did their roles with predicate acts, and wants to hide them, leading up to the World Trade Center and in it, Hartford courts and the Britain courts, military courts, one-way reports. You respond to any of my stuff I've said online for a while. Then they also lie about what's recorded over the phones and over email. There's also an Officer Poison recorded delusions raw, involved predicate with organized crime acts that child sex offenders are involved with, also with judges and with two police Mendez blood brothers, a DeMoro family. I don't know what type of police they are, but they're recorded, confessed, demonstrated also. A Kerr family involved with people from my grammar school. And I never saw them. I don't know if they went to my grammar school. They said they did. Associated with a person that lives up the street, a family that lived up the street. I don't know if they still live there. An O'Brien family. Now they're also involved with foreign and domestic nations where they're involved with police departments, and where those nations are keeping those police departments, with the FBI keeping those police departments, with the CIA keeping those police departments, with the whole Department of Homeland Security keeping those police departments through defenses of their identity of the ground, time treatments, everything, fact treatments, sequence treatments, value treatments, keeping them all criminally foreign influence, needed to pretend other through contrast, needed to value contrast further and further, needed to value roles with cover-ups all tied to that, relying upon methods and members exploiting those self-cultivated. We have worse than Justice Department, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw, originally still used remotely. All the identity ground types of lawyers. How they have types of lawyers is used remotely. Lawyers are involved. Trantola were involved with mental illness and with physical delusions and with wire crimes, with judges and with police forms and with media. They don't want to follow mandated law and get me a response for the names, the forging names, switching names, judges, and with WFSB involved with them attaching me and others to fake and little kids to fake locations. They forced before the principal child offender was caught. They were forcing worse with then and now. They forced his confessions related to they were forced confessions. I don't know who that was related to. They were for Mike Levine, and their names were forging, switching names, forgetting their names and using someone else's names. Who forgets names and uses someone else's name? They also do the same to Branch, as the ones prosecutors with their kids involved. These people are too sick with the weapon of their locations, loaded with their database, organized crime acts, right through administrations. This is right through the military too. Now this is also tied to how they use these corners of streets. You better get them on paper so I have to stop talking and begging you for mandated law, because that's evidence too they're lying about. This is how it shows how they're kept victim predators. They don't want to care about how they're victims, then deal with how they're predators. Now